Aqui é só pentada, pentada.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as we return to the Temple of Speed here at Monza to continue the third round of the 2026 Prototype Cup Europe. And we're here for the second day of racing, the second race this weekend. And yesterday, I mean, what a belter we had, ladies and gentlemen. If you weren't able to join us yesterday, go back and watch what was a spectacular race one. I mean, Emil Hellberg, what a dominant drive from him. In fact, it was far from dominant, in fairness, but the racecraft that he displayed was nothing short of spectacular, hanging on in the balance from the ever-charging number 11, of course, where Danny Sufi was at the wheel and came ever close to another victory. But for Emil Hellberg, it was his first of the season thus far, promoting himself up to P3 in the championship, and the gap at the front of the Drivers' Championship comes down from what was 14 to just 5. Maxime Durex and Valentino Catalano, 97 to 92 between the pair of them. My name is Zach Sweeney. I'll be talking you through all of the racing action this weekend, just off the back of a very chaotic Euro Cup 3 race, and it's excited as ever to see some LMP3 action out on circuit. The day today, much different than what we saw yesterday in the form of a very warm day yesterday. It was 58 degrees track temp. The tyres were scorching. I was speaking to Theo Mercurius yesterday, and he said that at the end of his stint, which by the way was around about half an hour, he was dead, destroyed. He said the tyres didn't look too bad, but they felt awful as well, which is understandable at the end of a stint on a 58-degree circuit. Today, though, much different. We had rain in the morning. The track is much cooler. You can see the sun not beaming down here at the Temple of Speed, and as such, it should be a slightly easier day of racing for these drivers. We'll see higher top speeds because the engines can run a bit more efficiently, and also the tyres will be a little bit easier to manage. On pole position, it was Danny Sufi that took the number 11 GMS car to pole alongside Theo Mercurius, who the 74 team Virage and Virage as a whole struggled a little bit yesterday, but Theo Mercurius had the pure pace to take the fastest lap yesterday. It was his turn to qualify the car today, and he'll start on the front row. We'll run you through the full grid in just a couple of moments' time, but I hope everyone is having a good weekend, a good day, and ready for some racing action. You guys gave me some great company in the YouTube chat yesterday, so hoping we can see more of your thoughts, feelings, queries and questions, everything under the sun in the YouTube chat. Of course, this is my first weekend commentating on the Prototype Cup Europe, and I have to say, yesterday was a great introduction to the championship. Very much looking forward to seeing what we've got in store. A couple of things that are of note. The number 3 Aus Motorsport car seeming to be struggling on pace slightly. They qualified P5 yesterday. They finished 5th yesterday as well. And Nigel Moore qualified that car 5th again today. It was the first time this season that they finished off of the podium. They went P1 at Mugello, P3 at Mugello, P2, P1 at the Nürburgring, and then P5 here yesterday at Monza, seeing the gap in the championship come down. That was in the Drivers' Championship. It's the same story in the teams as well, 97 to 92 to 85. So just 12 points covering the top 3 in the teams' championship. And there we can see the car P4 in the team's championship, the BWT Muka Motorsport Duquesne D09. But let's run you through the starting grid nonetheless. It'll be Danny Sufi that starts the GMS number 11 alongside Theo Mercurius the 2024 Ligier European Series champion for Team Virage. Zino Volker running very, very well this weekend, starts third alongside Tobias Clausen for Muka Motorsport on row 2. Nigel Moore alongside yesterday's race winner, Emil Hellberg, the Swede, will start this one from P6. We've got a season record, 10 cars this weekend. Linus Hellberg alongside Oscar Tunyo, the Colombian, will start for GMS on row 4 from Samuel Erfrid and Marcus Pommer, the 10th and final driver to take to the start of what will be a slightly reduced 48-minute race. The fuel capacity, things that had to be reviewed. The cars with no refueling couldn't do the full 55-minute race distance because you're at full throttle for quite a long time and at a quite high point of the rev range for quite a long time over the course of the lap here at the Temple of Speed. As such, we'll have 48 minutes of racing. The pit window anywhere between the 19th and 29th minute of the race, where they'll serve their man pit stop time and will do their driver change should they need to. They'll roll behind the Ford Mustang safety car, and it'll be a rolling start to get this race underway. What do we expect then, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for joining us if you are now just tuning in. A pleasure to have your company, myself, Zach Sweeney, in the commentary box to talk you through the next shy of 50 minutes of racing action this weekend at the Temple of Speed. And like I say, yesterday brought us some thrills and some spills for some. Danny Stuffi having the off on the final lap, chasing victory, and that's what it means to chase the top step in this championship, going from strength to strength is this championship. Previously the Prototype Cup Germany, now of course a full European championship. The only fully fledged LMP3 championship in Europe, featuring the Ligier, the Duquesne, the Ginetta and the Ades all out on circuit. And of course the winning team of the 2026 campaign, courtesy of Michelin, get themselves a reserved grid slot for the 2027 Michelin Le Mans Cup next year, which of course is where a lot of these drivers aspire or already are racing at in the LMP3 class. Of course, a lot of them want to carry on all the way. In the form of Catalano, his goal is to become a factory hypercar driver, and right now is on the right stepping stones to go all the way to the top. Well, we have got a mixture of ability and experience out there on the grid. Take the first stint with a pinch of salt. That was the one thing that we learnt yesterday, is that the first stint, you can kind of piece together a picture as to who is going to be where, but we don't really actually know how the race is going to unfold until after the pit stops, like we saw yesterday with Hellberg, who was not the quickest, but quick enough to still gain the race lead after the pit stop cycle had occurred. He's carrying a much fewer of a penalty in the pit stop phase compared to the drivers a bit higher up in the field, and as such that allowed him to capitalise. So don't hold your breath and get your hopes up if your favourite driver is in the lead at the end of the first stint. A lot can change all the way to the end. We saw plenty of safety cars over the course of today as well. We didn't get any yesterday in the Prototype Cup Europe, but who knows what can happen today. Different track conditions, different track temperatures, maybe some rain in the air. Who knows what can spice this race up. As we roll our way around the Parabolica, a reminder, it's the number 11 GMS team of Danny Stuffi alongside Theo Mercouris in the black, yellow and orange, number 74 of Team Virage. The Lorea GT1 Racing of Zino Volker alongside Tobias Clausen for Muka Motorsport on row 2. Then comes Nigel Moore and yesterday's race winner, Emil Hellberg, lining up on the third row of the field. 48 minutes of racing here at the Temple of Speed. And let's see what can happen for the third round, the second race of the Prototype Cup Europe. The lights on the gantry are on. They roll their way, slowly crawling towards the start-finish line. And let's see who can come out on top in Monza. The lights go out, we go racing. Great start there from the front row. And Emil Hellberg already trying to slice his way through the middle, get into the slipstream of Theo Mercouris. Look out for the all-red at 49 of Zino Volker, who's now trying to put some pressure onto the Virage car, which is lacking a little bit on straight-line speed. Straight down the inside, though, and getting it stopped. Beautifully done. Theo Mercouris will try and hang on. One of the beautiful motorsport cars going off at the opening corner as well. But what a start that was for Emil Hellberg. He goes all the way from 6th to 2nd at the opening corner. late on the brakes, and a beautiful move done by yesterday's race winner. The Swede is flying. Mercurius in the slipstream now tries to challenge towards the second chicane here at the Roger. A dominant start for Sufi, but Thea Mercurius doesn't quite have the legs on the straight to challenge. Outside line for Nigel Moore in the number 3 House Motorsport, getting overtaken there by the number 12 of Oscar Pinho, who will have to defend towards the first Lesmo. And a race start that rivals yesterday. Brilliant stuff, guys, out there on circuit. That was a great couple of corners of action. Danny Spoofy, though, not waiting around for a second invitation to run away with things. Emil Helberg, though, from the initial get-go, just got the launch. As already we're getting word from race control, an incident involving car 74 of Mercurius, the 48 of Helberg, and the, just between the two of them. I think race control was noting something down there between Helberg and Mercurius, not entirely sure as to what they saw that was potentially against the rules, but we'll have to wait and see as to what the verdict is going to be in that regard. But already so good. Yeah, we did see one of the Muke Motorsports, I think it was Class Master, the number 8, who just decided to straight line T1, didn't quite get it stopped, and ultimately maybe saw the bunch up Constantina effect through the first apex, and decided maybe taking the chicane wasn't for him on the first lap. Danny Spoofy, though, now with track position, the first time this weekend we've seen him in the overall race lead, and now we're actually starting to see what sort of a pace that he's got in his pocket. In towards turn number 1. Very nice looking GMS car, the number 11. Trying to bridge a very healthy gap indeed. Now the pit stop times that I'm going to go off the same as yesterday. I'm not entirely sure if the test penalties have refreshed based on the results of yesterday, but nonetheless, yesterday it was Maxime Dirks and Nigel Moore that had the most pit stop time of anyone, with 118 seconds. Catalano and Danny Spoofy will be carrying still 116 seconds by virtue of the fact that they finished second at the Nürburgring, and even if it has refreshed for this race, they finished second yesterday, so that won't change. And also the pair of them both silver drivers, so they're carrying a very heavy burden. It was a burden that cost them the race potentially yesterday. So Danny Spoofy will be looking to do a little bit better here on Sunday. But Emil Helberg, I don't know what he's had for breakfast this morning, but he didn't qualify that great earlier today. But right now, his pace soaring, and he's bringing Thea Mercurius with him. He's actually able to match the number 11. And this is what won him the race yesterday, right? Was being there or thereabouts, being good enough to capitalise when the pit stops worked in his favour. And that's all you really need to do. He's also a solo entry this weekend for Ally Racing, so he'll be in the car for the entire 48-minute race, of which we've got 44.5 still to go. But the track temp quite cooler, 20 degrees Celsius. Compared to what it was yesterday. The air temp is still quite warm, 32 degrees. The humidity has gone up, but the track temp has absolutely fallen. Those Michelin cars will be working slightly less hard, will be slightly more manageable, and your time in the cockpit probably slightly more bearable as well. Let us know in the YouTube chat. Thank you for your company, by the way, again, joining me more by myself in the commentary box. So hopefully you guys can keep me some nice company in the YouTube chat. Let me know your thoughts as the race goes on. What are you making of the race? Anything that you're noticing out there on circuit? Currently, right now, it's Thea Mercurius with the fastest lap of the race, so 46.663. Speaking to him earlier, myself and Thea, we've known each other for a few years now. Raced together in the Rocket Racing Car Formula 4 Esports Competition UK, where we were both trying to win a scholarship in British Formula 4. He did much better in that than I did, funnily enough, but we had a nice battle at Silverstone, and since then just staying in touch, and let me know how he's getting on with all of his exploits. But nonetheless, he was over the moon with his lap in qualifying to put him on the front row. He said he hooked everything up, but just lacking slightly in terms of raw engine power and raw straight line speed. And well, ultimately around a circuit up to the temple of speed, we kind of do need that. Right now he's making do, sat in the slipstream of Emil Helberg, just dragging him along, keeping him on pace. Meanwhile, Danny Spoofy is able to match the pace set by the Ally Racing Swede of Emil Helberg. We won the race yesterday and would like to go 2 on the bounce. Flash their headlights there from Thea Mercurius, and slightly defensive as well from Oscar Tinho, the Colombian, for GMS down in 4th, being chased after by the number 3 House Motorsport of Nigel Moore. So a lot of people very, very close out there on circuit. Got about second, although not much of that. Thea Mercurius, very experienced, knows when and when not to bounce. And I think knowing that he's slightly lacking in terms of straight line speed, it's probably a better idea to sit behind. However, he's going to write that straight away down the inside, gets it stopped in towards turn number 1. He's got the pace to press on and try and get after Danny Stufi. Doesn't want to be sat behind the Ally Racing machine, so as soon as he got a run, he found the way through. Now wants to use some of that pace. Back into second goes Theo Vicuris. Yeah, literally just as I was saying, maybe it's a better idea for him to sit behind. He ripped that straight up, went straight down the inside. Always the way. Theo Vicuris takes the move, not really hard fought by Emil Hellberg at all in the slightest. Again, he knows that his moment in this race, the race has come for him in the pit stop. As a bronze driver as well, even if he is carrying success penalty from yesterday, he should still have a net lower pit stop relative to those around him, purely because he is a solo bronze driver. Whereas Danny Stufi and Valentino Catalano, both silvers, carry quite a heavy balanced performance, if you like. Getting confirmation as well that the incident noted by race control between Jimmy Pierce and Emil Hellberg is no further action, and definitely I think the right decision in that regard. One of the TMS cars, that's Oscar Tinio, under pressure now, still from Nigel Moore, who's in the slipstream, trying to break the toe on this run down in towards Parabolica. Nigel Moore eyeing up a move, but not quite close enough to go for it. Zeno Volker hasn't done too much in the early phase of this race either. We saw some very punchy pace from the Ferrari GT1 racing car yesterday, but really seeing that yet this race. You can see they're all very close. They're quite evenly spaced apart. Theo Vicuris, that's another fastest lap of the race, by the way. He's lacking on straight line speed, but over the lap is flying. 4 tenths out Danny Stufi that last time through, and he's trying to close on to the back now of the number 11. The American driver out of the wheel will swap over to his teammate Catalano, the 20-year-old who was the champion of this series back in 2024. Danny Stufi himself, a driver who won this last year alongside who would have been the Hungarian of Pavel this time last year. So a champion roster at GMS for 2026. Theo Vicuris, before he hands over to his teammate, wants to have as much fun as possible and try and chase after for the overall race lead. Following him now into the Lesmos. He's turning in from the white line, which maybe an hour ago wouldn't have been a very good idea because the track would have been so slick. Those painted lines, very, very slippery, especially if you're carrying any sort of brake into the corner as well. You'd have just slapped the rears. Now it seems the track is dry enough to get away with it. And these drivers, they're paid their track fee. They are going to use every inch possible of it into Ascari. Just look, they'll turn in with as much of the track as possible. 2 wheels over the curb. Not the case for Emil Hellberg, actually. Opted just to keep 2 wheels on the tarmac. And Theo Vicuris and Danny Stufi, both of them basically turning in with their wheels brushing against the grass. Nigel Moore still on the back of Oscar Tinio, who's weaving around, half in defence and half to break the toe. Parabolica will be under no pressure for the Gepard Group car. "39 minutes of race back still to go, by the way, and we're about 10 minutes away from the pit window opening." We saw yesterday a lot of the maybe the bronze drivers in the lineup coming in quite early to get their silver in as quickly as possible. But now today we've got the flip side of that, where we've got maybe some of the silvers starting the race. Theo Vicuris, of course, in the car. I think what's going to happen is that we're going to see the reverse of what we saw yesterday. Those that came in early yesterday are going to stay out late today. Those that came in late yesterday might come in early today, just to swap the car and make sure they've got their best possible driver in the car for the second half of the race. Because if a late safety car comes out, or even a safety car comes out through the pit window, you want your best driver in the car to maximise that opportunity. Nice ball, running a little bit wide there through the Lesmos, getting washed up in a bit of dirty air potentially, washing wide from the apex, got on the power a bit too early and picked up some dust in good measure through turn 6, now through 7, under the oval. To Ascari. Nigel Moore is going to be picking up the rear end of the number 12 GMS car in front of him. He's going to want to make quick work of him. Struggling to pace slightly, I think, overall the Aus Motorsport cars. Maxime Direct, Nigel Moore both maybe not quite where they were relative to Mugello and Nürburgring, which do have vastly different characteristics to here at Monza. Maybe we'll see them bounce back for the season finale in a few weeks when we take you to the second Spa Francorchamps. But right now, it's just a patient game, really. The closest battle on circuit is Oscar now actually onto the back of Emil Hellberg. So 3 cars fighting for what will be third position. Our race leader, though, still Danny Stufi, who's now matching the pace set by Theo Mercurius. They're running in the 45.2s. The pair of them separated by less than half a tenth of a second in their pure pace. Listen into these LMP3s. They sound absolutely fantastic, don't they? As I said yesterday, they really are a driver's car. They've not got heaps of downforce, they've not got heaps of power. The differential at the back is very easy to slip. So often you'll find through heavy traction zones, especially if there's any sort of undulation at the exit, you know, the outside wheel will keep spinning. The revs will increase, but you're not actually going anywhere. You're not actually putting that power down. The challenge is to stop the car from doing that, but also as well stop the car from hogging, because you've not got infinite amount of downforce or infinite amount of power to bail you out of any mistake. This car leans a lot on the tyres as well, and that's again, good driving is rewarded. You really do get to see the talent shine through in this class of car, and a very talented field that we've got for the Proto Cup Europe. It's a bit of a mouthful to say all in one. Proto Cup Europe. I probably struggled it a couple of times. Unintentionally, of course. 36 minutes left on the clock. There is Falca, 49 in the all red, and the silver striking across there actually. Fantastic for the Lorea GT1 racing machine. Again, about 7 minutes or so away from the pit window opening. Again, it'll be 10 minutes in length. Just a general rule, by the way, if you know, we've got people who hold bronze all the way up to gold licenses in the LMP3 based on, of course, previous results and their grading process. A bronze and a silver pairing will get plus 10 seconds in the pit lane. A bronze and a gold driver will get plus 10 seconds in the pit lane. But silver and silver plus 20, because the expectation is your average skill level as such in the car is much higher. That balanced performance reins it back in. Over the course of the weekend, they get 3 sets of Michelin tyres to be used in official sessions. They also do get a carryover set from the previous round used on the track day session that they run the day before. But in official sessions, so qualifying in the race, they get 3 sets over the course of the weekend. I think that also includes practice as well. Everyone will be on a fresh net for today. They put a fresh net on for qualifying, and the tyres, I'm sure, will be feeling a lot better with what is still a fairly toasty 39 degrees track temp, but relative to what it was yesterday, going to feel nice and cold for these drivers. A lot easier to, it's going to be a lot harder to overdrive the car and start that ever painful spiral of your overdriving. So the front tyres start heating up, so the front front starts slipping, and it's easy to overdrive, and as much you overdrive, they heat up and the cycle continues. It's very painful on a hot circuit. Even if the tyre deck itself isn't very high, running them at a high temperature means they're constantly slipping. So you're getting almost a switch of oversteer on the exit through the traction zones, and then very little front grip through all of the high-demanding, high-speed corners, and even the mid-speed through the Lesmos as well. So I'm sure the drivers will be very grateful for these cooler conditions today. Emil Hellberg, yesterday's race, win a bit of a twitch, having to turn in twice to Parabolica under a bit of pressure now from Oscar Tunyo and Nigel Moore, who's dropped off the back of these two slightly. The GMS car driving onto the rear end of the Ally Racing machine, who has taken podiums so far this season. They took a second back at Mugello, they took a third back at the Nürburgring, and of course they won this time yesterday here in Monza. They'd like to add to their podium tally and continue a very consistent run of form in the championship. But the GMS, their main goal is to close what is a 5-point deficit to Alice Motorsport in the championship. Right now, with Nigel Moore in P3 and Danny Stufi in P1, that would be more than enough to tip the scales heading into the final round of the championship when we take to Spa next time out. Danny Stufi reaching the gap Furious very slowly. We're talking, a tenth a lap at most. We are now into the 44s though. Danny Stufi just at a 44.9. A couple of tenths quicker than Theo Mercurius, who is again fluctuating. That gap it'll go down a little bit, and then Stufi will bounce back and just grid it out by a tenth or so. But Team Curious, 74 of Team Virage, can't get too excited because, of course, Dominic Bastian will be still getting into the car next, and we'll have to wait and see what his pace holds. Wasn't the best of stints yesterday pace-wise for him, so he'll be looking to bounce back and maybe hold the hard work that Curious has been able to put in the first stint of today. Side by side between the two Mukas, potentially the number 8 of Carlson goes down the inside of Marcus Bomber, the 2024 champion of this series, two-time champion in fact, 24 and 23, who won it. On this occasion though, he's been overtaken by his fellow all-pink machine, the BWT Muka Motorsport. Number 8 goes through and up now into 7th position. 2.3 seconds off the back of the next car is, Folker. And to be fair, we can fit the majority of the field on one shot. The field is very, very close. We're talking maybe a couple of tenths of a second a lap difference in terms of pace. And when we've got so many different types of LMP3 car out there as well, that just means that the championship is incredibly tight. And despite the different chassis, still close, still competitive, and again the drivers themselves still close and competitive. There's our race leader, Danny Spoofy. Redemption 2 still managed to bring it home in P2 yesterday, mind you, but I think desperate maybe is the word. Started to make some irrational moves, made a couple of mistakes facing after Emil Hellberg, started overdriving slightly, and ultimately we saw him into the gravel. He did very well not to beat it though yesterday to bring it home in P2, but now it's a new day, a breath of fresh air, some cooler track temp. Now driving remarkably quickly. Curious, keeping on tabs with him just about. It's the 19-year-old, and now Emil Hellberg, 48-year-old, but the number 48, Ally Racing, keeping Ostistinho at bay, who has been quietly crawling onto the back of Emil Hellberg. Of course, the new entry is the number 12 GMS car, and hopefully they'll be with us for the rest of the season. Ostistinho, a very experienced driver, has been around for over a decade in motorsport now, was the 2017 Special Tourenwagen champion, as well as this season, more recently, leading the IMSA VP Sports Car Challenge over in the States, against some very recognisable names as well over there. The likes of Valentino Catalano is racing with him. In fact, was the champion last year was Catalano. He'll be taking the wheel at the number 11. So, yeah, a very star-studded roster across the grid, in fairness. Some of the best LMP drivers in the world fighting in this championship. Of course, for them, it's extra experience, extra track time. More of an excuse to go racing. A lot of these, like I say, racing elsewhere in the world in motorsport, whether that's in IMSA, whether that's in part of the ELMS package with the Le Mans Cup. Very often you'll see some very recognisable names across championship, and usually in similar places on the field across championships. Net positions on the left-hand side of your screen there, you can see Emil Hellberg up 3 from where he started, Ostistinho from P8 now to P4, and no changes between the top two. Danny Sufi has been unchallenged since the start of the race. We saw Mercurius and Hellberg side by side through turn 1. What a move it was from Hellberg to climb up 4 places in the opening corner, got the jump on everyone else. But Danny Sufi did not wait around. As soon as those lights went out, he put his foot to the floor, and now leads by just shy of 4 seconds, heading into the pit window being open. Well, now actually, I think Danny Sufi, I think it will be. Well, yeah, no, it's been open for the last 30 seconds, so we'll see as to who decides to come in. It's open for the next 10 minutes of racing as well. No one opting to do so. I think Catalano did a long stint yesterday, so there's Danny Sufi's chance to do a long stint today, and that's a good way of sharing it. They can see confirmation from Chris himself. The window is open. Tino Folker straight into the pit lane. Of course, he's a solo entry, so an opportunity for him to take a breather. Seems straight on work. No tyre changes and no refueling. So all it is going to be making sure the driver is comfortable, making sure the tyre pressures are where they need to be, and a quick wipe down of the windscreen as well. Not quite as dusty as the circuit than it was yesterday. The rain washed most of that away. Coming into the pit lane as well was Marcus Pommer for Muka, Linus Hellberg as well for Ally Racing, also following them into the pit lane for the early stoppers in the pit cycle. If you are now just joining us, by the way, big hello and welcome. If this is your first time joining us for the Prototype Cup Europe Championship. This is our third round of the 2026 season, our second race of the weekend. And right now in the mix of the pit lane cycle. The drivers will come in, they'll take a mandatory pit stop time of what is 95 seconds, baseline, everyone has to do that. And then there's the handicap and the success penalty for drivers with better rated drivers in the car. So silver pairings, bronze pairings, gold pairings, which we don't have any gold drivers on the field this weekend. And then, of course, like I said, the success penalty based on where they finished in the previous race. They dictate how long they spend in the pit lane. And one of the drivers, one of the teams carrying a big burden of pit stop time is the number 11 of Danny Sufi, who has had to drive the wheels off that car in this opening stint in order to bridge enough of a gap to hopefully have an opportunity later on in the race. Look out for Emil Hellberg, because that is the reason that he won the race yesterday, or at the very least was in a position to be able to win the race yesterday. It was the defensive masterclass and pure composure that won in the race in the end, but his lack of pit stop time put him in the opportunity to have the overall race lead, to have the track position, and then from then on, it was all in the hands of the Swede, who right now is heading a 3-car train. Behind him, the EMS number 12 of Oscar Tinho, and the number 3 championship leaders of Ounce Motorsport of Nigel Moore and Maxim Derrick, who will be getting into the car at the pit stop. Into the pit lane, by the way, comes Samuel Ifrid for Team Virage, the 77, which had a DNF yesterday, a steering problem in the car. So Maximilian Camalander will bring it to the end and hope that the problems haven't followed him into the car. Nice and efficient pit stop sequences for the teams as well, it has to be said. They get so good at that. And the key thing, I think, in the pit stops is composure, right? Every team member knows what they need to do. They all know how to do their job. It's the case of not getting jittery hands, not shaking, not forgetting where you put something, not panicking. They've all got the time. They've got plenty of time in the pit stop. They don't need to rush as much. As soon as the driver's in, which of course you want to get them as quickly as possible, but they've got the time to take a breath, to take their time with it, to make sure the driver is comfortable, to make sure everything is as it should be. And ultimately, it's make or break of the race. 77 now in a good position where it can wait for the rest of the pit stop time is tallied up. Meanwhile, Danny Sufi, Tim Mercurius, Hellberg, Tinho. Hellberg and Moore continue on, and Tinho comes into the pit lane. Will hand over the car to Jake Williamson, his partner. One of our trophy drivers was P2 at VIR was Jake Williamson in the IMSA VP Sports Car Challenge, and will be looking to carry some of that success over here this weekend. They are in an opportunity, or they have got an opportunity, to take a podium. They're in a very close battle with those around them, so keep an eye out in that fight for third, and we'll see the order shuffle around. And then after the pit stop cycle, probably with that maybe 18 minutes left to go, we'll start to see as to who is where and what the gaps are, what the drivers need to do, what sort of a job the drivers have to chase after those around them. There's Matisse Buchel getting into the Muka Motorsport BWT car. We'll be looking to bring it home for the next 24 minutes of racing action. The gaps between P1, P2 and P3 around the same. Danny Sufi 5.2 seconds clear of Theo Mercurius. Theo Mercurius about 4.5 seconds clear of Emil Hellberg, Ally Racing. Now we'll have to wait and see. Oh my goodness me, look at that jumping through the last part of Ascari. Danny Sufi on the limit. Of course, back in 2024, Monza was completely resurfaced. The new curbs put in, smoothing them out a little bit. The drivers relishing in the fact that they really can push, use the downforce of these LMP3 cars and send it, but they are a very stiff platform and not the longest or widest of wheelbases, so they are quite sensitive to those changes of direction. Ascari, the biggest challenge of them all, especially on the low downforce spec that we've got here at Monza. Minutes left on the clock. Jake Williamson and Matisse Buchel both out of the pit lane and on their out laps. So just waiting for 4 more cars to find their way into pit lane. They've got 3 minutes left to do it. So either this lap or the lap after, they'll be making their way down pit lane. Danny Sufi leading 5.5 seconds clear of Theo Mercurius. Was speaking to Mathias Buchel because he, as of a lot of drivers, they've raced in the 88 Championship and in GT cars generally as well, and sort of asking them what the challenges are of transferring from a GT car to an LMP3 because they're sports cars, but the LMP3 much more downforce, no drive range of course, so GT3 and GT4 cars both have ABS and traction control, not the case in LMP3. You can lock the car, particularly the rear axle seems to be quite a challenge in the LMP3s. And if you lock the rears, you lock the rear axle, it's basically the same as pulling a handbrake, you're going to go in sideways. That's a challenge to carry. No TC as well, so easy to split the rear end, especially with the diff the way it is. Of course, the teams will adjust that and change it to the drivers, but again, another challenge, especially around the couple of traction zones that we've got here at Monza. Ultimately, the main adaptation is just the speed that you can carry through the corners, leaning on the downforce, pressing the car into the ground. They are prototypes for a reason. Into the pit lane, though, comes our race leader, Danny Sufi, from 5.5 seconds clear of Theo Mercurius, who, what I can see, will make his way down. Well, he'll continue on. Emil Hellberg will make his way down pit lane as well for Ally Racing. Now, the race is on in the pit lane. Who has got more pit stop time? Valentino getting himself hyped up, ready, getting the adrenaline and the blood flowing. The German driver, who did such an incredible stint yesterday, fast lap after fast lap. He messaged me, he said, I was pushing. I said, yeah, mate, I could tell. He wasn't slowing down for anyone. Quick spray of the windscreen. Valentino will get comfortable. Theo Mercurius will re-inherit the race lead, will continue on as long as he possibly can before handing the car back over to Dominic Bastian. Theo Mercurius needs to come into the pit lane literally at the end of this lap. Otherwise he risks a penalty. I'm not sure what the penalty is for missing the pit window, whether it's DQ or just a very big penalty. But Emil Hellberg, this is where he won the race yesterday, was in the pit lane. Checking the tyre pressures, maybe just bringing him down a click or two. Now the tyres have gone through a heat cycle. Of course, often the unsung heroes, the pit crew, the mechanics, the engineers, those on the spanners, for each of the teams, they do such a brilliant job as to making sure the driver can get their race done as effectively, as efficiently as possible, and to as an optimized standard as possible as well. The driver can do the driving, also the equipment, also that is quite incredibly, and out of the pit lane, there is the race between them. Catalano versus Emil Hellberg. It's the 11 versus the 48 once more. Hellberg comes out just in front, and that is the fight, potentially for the net race lead. Out of the pit lane, they'll crawl their way down. Now Hellberg has got the pressure, 20 minutes on the clock. It's deja vu from yesterday. Can Catalano make the difference? The 74 team barrage into the pit lane as well. Theo Mercurius dragged out of the machine. Dominic Bastian will go in. And now the pressure is on Hellberg once more. The gap nowhere near as big as it was initially yesterday. Catalano will be straight on the gearbox of Emil Hellberg, who had some promising pace in the early phase of this race. Now he's got to lean on it, and he's got to lean on that defensive masterclass that he saw. But this time, he's got Catalano behind him. What difference is that going to make? Initially, actually seems that Hellberg is warmed up in the car, and that's fair, right? He's done the last 20 minutes of the race. He's already dusted off the cobweb, whereas Catalano, for example, still maybe has to take a lap or two just to kick the muscle memory into shape, get those tyres up to temperature, and try and chase after Hellberg. But what a story we could have written here at Monza for Hellberg if he's able to hang on. But Catalano will be chasing after that victory, what will be his second of the season. After, well, two back-to-back P3 finishes, race 2 at the Nürburgring, race 1 here at Monza. They took the victory at the Nürburgring. Did the number 11 GMS car, and on now they've got an opportunity to maybe do it again. Theo Mercurius, well now Dominic Bastian still stationary in pit lane. Now it's Maxi Derek, the number 3. Tunes being played down in their pit lane. The mechanics hype themselves up there, as said. And a very nice sounding LMP3 as it revved its way up down pit lane. He'll come out just in behind these two. The 74 team Virage still stationary in the pit lane. Now rolling its way out. So I'm curious. Still showing up on the timer screens as the one in the car. So maybe that's why he spent longer in the pit lane. Because, oh no, he's pissed off. There we go. It's refreshed. I was going to say. Dominic Ashton now at the wheel, but there you can see at the bottom of your screen a penalty lap for car 48. For what reason, I'm not sure. Maybe a pit stop infringement. And that could define this race now. The 48 race leading Ally Racing of Emil Hellberg and handed a penalty by race control, a penalty lap. And that is brutal. I wonder what that penalty lap entails. Because it's not like MotoGP where you can just take a long lap or something. Maybe it's a drive-through penalty. I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to wait and see as to what gets served here. But a penalty for car 48. Also an incident noted down at T8 between cars 18 and 43. That being Larson and Linus Hellberg, Muka and Ally Racing respectively, fighting for 9th and 10th position. With 16 minutes left to go in this race, we've ticked on to the 17th lap. So probably about 10 more left to go this weekend for round number 3 of the 2026 season of Prototype Cup Europe. What does it mean now for Emil Hellberg? Is Catalano once again the favourite? Because pace-wise, he's not warmed up into the car. He's not driven onto the back of Emil Hellberg is what I thought. There we can see the slowdown. He's had to lose the position there. He's dropped in behind Valentino Catalano. And a change for the race lead by virtue of the penalty lap. And once more, it was looking so good for the Swede. Just wondering, was it the fact that he had to go... No, so he didn't have to go straight on at T1 and sort of take the slalom. I think what will happen, he just had to slow down and give up the position, potentially, to Valentino Catalano. The gap has then swung. He's lost 4 seconds as a result. It's 1.9 for Valentino Catalano. Has Hellberg got the pace to chase after the number 11? Or is the fairy tale done and dusted already? There are the 2 leaders. Catalano needs a monster stint to run away with this. Maxime Dirk's back into the podium, by the way. They finished off it yesterday, but now the Belgian is back at the wheel. Their podium streak ended, but they're keen to get it going once more. Is there an opportunity to beat Emil Hellberg in this race, and maybe for Dirks to finish second and to limit the damage in the championship, by the way? The way the point system works today, for those unfamiliar, 25 for a win, 20 for second, then 16, 13, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But what that means is you are very much rewarded for a race win. There's 5 points between P1 and P2, there's only 4 between P2 and P3, and then there's only 3 between P3 and P4. So the point net gain per position means a lot more the higher up the field that you go. As it should be. You should be rewarded for making that difference and winning the race. What that means is with Dirks here, going from 3rd to 2nd, it'll be an extra 4 championship points. And as it would stand, if he is able to finish 2nd, as he looks to go to the outside, then ducks to the inside, the Belgian tries to go for the move into the Rojek, not quite able to make it work. But with the number 11 in P1 and the number 3 may be able to finish 2nd, they would be tied on point heading into the championship finale at Spa. Catalano not waiting around at all for this race lead. Hellberg's penalty lap has cost him the chance at a fairy tale 2nd victory back-to-back here in Monza. Ultimately, rules are rules. Race control decided that was the way it needed to be. And now Maxime Dirks is the one to apply the pressure. He dropped off the back of him slightly through that middle sector. We know how good Hellberg is through the middle sector because of how hard he was pushing at this time yesterday to minimise the risk, because there's a mistake. You could hear the front squeal. They did not like that entry to Parabolica. in the slightest. This is what happened to Maxime Dirks, I think, through the second Lesmo, just getting it wrong. Snap of oversteer at the apex and dipping the wheel over the curb. What's happened to our race leader, Valentino? Nothing, as there was the change for the lead. So there was Hellberg serving his penalty. Catalano took the lead. And yeah, track position means more than pace around here, especially in the position of Emil Hellberg. He might have been able to defend, or at the very least would have given it as good of a go as he possibly could, like we saw yesterday for Catalano. Even though the gap when they swapped, even though Hellberg only lost a net 4 seconds as such, the crucial bit is that he lost the track position, and that is now what has cost him this race. Aston Dirks flashing the headlights, trying to get into the head of Hellberg, and well, that's easier said than done. With just under 12 minutes of this race remaining. What a brilliant circuit the Temple of Speed is, though. Now hosting the finale of the World Endurance Championship with the 6 hours of Monza. A race where I'm sure a lot of these drivers will aspire to be in a couple of years' time, where they work their way up the ranks through sports car racing. Catalano making his case for teams of the future going forwards. Of course, talent is only one part of the equation. The funding is the other problem. Usually the harder of the two to sort out, but if Catalano can sort that out, he's got more than enough talent to work his way up, go through the ranks. Only 20 years old is the German. Experienced both in sports cars and in single seaters. He was the French F4 Junior champion back in 2020. We've got yellow flags through the opening sector through turns 4 and 5. That's down at the Variante Roger. Back to green flag racing though, no problem. There's the 74 though. Problem for Team Virage. That's what the double wave yellows are for. Dominic Bastian crawling to a halt. And now reversing. He's in a very tricky position here. He's got to get it away from the barrier and then get full lock left to rejoin the circuit. You don't want to reverse all the way onto the racing line. That would be very silly indeed. Let's see what happened though. And it was a spin for him, much past the apex of the corner. So looked to me as though he maybe locked the rears, carried a bit too much speed in, maybe trailed off the brakes a bit too quickly. And the rear of the car did not like that in the slightest. And then he's stationary there. And you've got more track or more surface to your left. So understandably, I think he's gone left-hand down there and then found himself at the barrier. And that is such a shame for Dominic Bastian, the trophy driver, especially after the stint that Theo Mercurius done just, well, 20 minutes to go. Challenging, or at the very least on par with the number 11 race leader for the 74 Fable race, not to be from the front row of the grid. Dominic Bastian now sits, well, just shy of a lap behind the rest of the field as a result of that spin. And again, these cars, they're designed to be going fast. They're not particularly designed at getting themselves going again. Once they're stationary, it's very hard to get them back up to speed, especially at those low speeds. Right in the clutch, a bit of a problem there. You can see the rear right wheel cover scraping against the Michelin tyre, the number 18 of Larsen. The Muki Motorsport, that's going to allow the Alloy Racing of Linus Hellberg to go through. That's not going to smell nice in the slightest in the cockpit. It's also going to be slowing him down tremendously and shredding that rear right tyre. So there must have been contact there. Let's take a look, see if we can see it from the replay. And it's just been rear-ended there from Linus Hellberg, who outbroke himself into the Roger. Eventually then had to cut the chicane. Goodness me, I mean, yeah, just way too late on the brakes from Linus Hellberg. And into the pit lane comes the number 18. They'll be able to repair it, and the mechanics are straight away there. Now the question is, do they replace the tyre? They have got one ready. So the rear corners get lifted. The tyre comes off, the tyre goes back on. Meanwhile, the mechanic at the back trying to, well, secure the rear right wheel cover, the rear right fender, if you like. Maybe even a bit of the diffuser has come off as well. Quick work though. Unfortunately, that is going to be raced over. The good news is though, with of course, the 10 cars finishing the race still bags you championship points. So it's always worth getting back out there because you score points if you take the second flag, or well, if you complete more than, I think, 2/3 of the race distance or something in that vein. So for them, even though they've lost positions, they still want to come out in P9, maybe even P10. Dominic Passion might still tip them if the pit stop is long enough, but for them, it's still worth it to grab those points for P9 because you never know what can happen through the rest of the season. For Mika Motorsport, though, it's the number 8 that will score the points for the team in 8th. The drivers score points individually based on their overall finishing position, but I think it's the best placed car in the team that scores the points for the team's championship. So as such, Mathias Pluschkel will take the honours of that for Muka at the moment. He was alongside Tobias Clausen, the Norwegian, over the first part of, or sorry, the Dane over the first part of this race, and right now running P5, 1.3 seconds off the back of Zino Falca to find another position. Also a very close battle in the fight for, forgive me, 6th and 7th. Jake Williamson versus Maximilian Kamalander, who had the steering problem yesterday for Team Virage. The 77 running 7th and just shy of 7/10 clear of Jake Williamson. Some people enjoying the oval up the top, hanging on for dear life as per the steepness of it, but a great view, I'm sure, as they race underneath them towards Ascari. There's our race leader, though, Valentino Catalano, putting in once again the stint of his life. And with no refueling, the car getting lighter and lighter. These Michelin tyres, fantastic. You know, Theo Mercouris, like I said earlier, told me yesterday that even though the tyres didn't feel great, they didn't feel like they had a lot of grip, understandably, the track was 58 degrees Celsius. They looked fine at the end of it. Like, there wasn't much blistering, too much graining or anything like that. The tyres actually looked okay. So the tyres can last the full race distance comfortably on a push lap. And now the car is getting lighter and lighter and lighter. As such, it's going to get quicker and quicker and quicker. There's less weight to lug around. So the offset of tyre wear is not as much as the offset from the fuel load. So the car, in theory, should get quicker later on in the race. And we are seeing that with Valentino Catalano, set fastest lap after fastest lap in his stint. Unparalleled consistency, and now 9.5 seconds clear of Emil Hellberg, who himself is trying to manage the gap. Currently sits 2 seconds clear of Maxime Dirks in the fight for second. And like I say, if the number 3 is able to finish second in this race, which isn't impossible with just 2 seconds between the two of them, the top 2 in the championship, Aust and GMS, will be matched on points heading into Spa. And equally, Maxime Dirks and Catalano will be matched on points in the Drivers' Championship as well. Dirks, who is yet to win a championship in car racing, was 3-time a champion in karting when he started back in 2020, all the way through to 2024, and then this time last year took 6 out of the 12 possible podiums in 2025. Now he's got a chance at the championship, but right now is make or break. They had a nice lead coming into Monza, clearly haven't quite got the pace, but now they've got an opportunity to mitigate it. They've gained 0.4 of a second through the middle sector there as Dirks. And with 4 minutes left to go, time of the essence. As soon as that timer ticks 0, that is it. That is the final lap of the race. There is no +1 lap. So Maxime Dirks needs to find whatever pace he's got left in that number 3. Let us know, what have your thoughts been so far the weekend, ladies and gentlemen? You can see a lot of you active in the YouTube chat. Thank you again for your company, and thank you for joining us for round number 3 and the second race of 2 this weekend for Prototype Cup Europe. Here, of course, on Creventic Motorsports TV. Let me know, what have your thoughts been of the weekend? What are you most excited about actually going into Spa? Hopefully we'll have your company for the season finale. What do you expect? Who do you think is going to come out on top in the championship? Will it be the 11 or will it be the number 3? Looking at this weekend in isolation, you would imagine maybe the number 11. But Spa has got all of the challenges of Mugello and all of the challenges of Monza. High speed, but also the crucial downforce balance that you need through that middle sector. So Spa will be very, very interesting to see how the teams bias their preferences. Do they go for a more downforce setup and push hard in the middle sector? Or do they run a more Monza spec car and prioritize straight line speed and almost suck it up in the middle sector? That's going to be a bit of intrigue. And again, a championship defining round because it is still wide open. Yuko are still in the fight mathematically. There'll be 50 points on offer for the weekend, 25 for each of the respective race wins. So 3 teams, 1 championship in the teams to decide. Then, of course, also the drivers, the trophy and the juniors championship still to crown in 2026. Battle for 4th here, though, as Matisz Puszkel for Muka tries to gain another position on the back of Zino Falka. And there you can see the team watching on from the garage. Two minutes left to go. Penultimate lap of the race this time by. And the track temp ramping up. It was, well, earlier today for Euro Cup 3, it was 28 degrees Celsius. At the start of this race, it was 33, I think. And now, at the tail end of this race, now what is 3 p.m. local time, the sun beaming down, the rain nowhere to be seen. The humidity has dropped to 30% as well. So it's a 45 degree, very toasty track temp. Still cooler than it was yesterday. But definitely very, very hot. Late on the brakes there from Matisz Puszkel to try and close the gap. Zino Falka, the gap flirting on the edge of a second. Just getting word that the incident between cars, I think it was 18 and 43, indeed so, will be investigated after the race. That was when Linus Hellberg went into the back of the BWT Muka Motorsport car of Larsen and caused the rear right damage that we saw that was scraping against the Michelin tyre. And there you can see the tactics now starting to play into effect. The mind games with the flash of the headlight from the number 8 of Matisz Puszkel, trying to get into the mirrors, trying to fill the mirrors, get into the head of Zino Falka in front. The gap under a second for the first time this race, and also the gap between Emil Hellberg and Maxim Direk heading on to the final lap of the race, 1.1 seconds. Right. The race leader now coming through Parabolica. This time we'll start the final lap of the race. Yeah, so next time through the final lap of the race. There's the fight for P2 though. Clear as day between the pair of them. Let's see what the gap is when they break the beam. I think it is going to be under a second. It is 9.5 tenths. Final lap of the race for the final race of the weekend for Prototype Cup Europe. This weekend, GMS is in the favourite. 2 pole positions to their name. A 2nd place yesterday. Tantalisingly close to race victory. And today they arrived. Danny Snoopy qualified the car. Dominated his opening stint. Emil Hellberg threw away the opportunity with that long lap penalty for him. That gave Catalano free rein, clear air, and Stint has dominated. 11.4 seconds is the gap. 1 second between Dirks and Hellberg. Hellberg is hanging on in the balance here. And there's also a similar battle in the fight for 4th. Matisz Puszkel, I think, is going to come close, but not close enough for the rear end as Zino Falka to challenge him. He is pushing like crazy, and you can tell that he is gunning that 4th place over the limit of the curve there through turn 7. But out in front, your race leader on that run towards Parabolica, the 3rd round of the championship, teeing themselves up brilliantly for the season finale of Prototype Cup Europe. They'll take the lead in the championship. They'll take their 2nd win of the season. Valentino Catalano, with the race of his life, with the speed of his life, will see the checkered flag first and takes victory at the Temple of Speed. What a drive from Danny Sufi and Valentino Catalano. Redemption from yesterday. And they were unchallenged here at Monza. Across the line, Emil Hellberg will take yet another podium this season in what has been such a consistent campaign for the Swede. P1 and P2 is nothing to scoff at here at Monza. What a weekend that he has had for Arrow Racing. And Maxim Dirks brings himself back onto the podium for their 5th of the year thus far. The championship swings in favour though of DMS, who will lead heading into the season finale. What did we make of that one then, ladies and gentlemen? That was maybe a slightly slow burner, not quite as much of a blockbuster as what we saw yesterday from these guys, but you cannot understate the dominance there from Catalano. who I'm sure will be relishing in that victory. And Danny Sufi, already the driver in this championship with the most starts, with the most wins, will add another tally to that. And Catalano as well, the driver with the most pole positions in this series. He has another tally to that this weekend. Emil Hellberg, though, you have to say, for a solo bronze driver, a P1 and a P2 is remarkable. Fair enough, helped by his lack of pit stop time, but his pace was nothing to scoff at. His fastest lap of 45.0, which was just over half a second slower than Valentino Catalano, who is, of course, a license rating higher than him, being silver, and also just a remarkable talent in LMP3 machinery. Dirks back to the podium. Nigel Moore did the heavy lifting in the first stint. Maxim Dirks then was able to continue that momentum and came ever close to maybe second place, but for both himself and Mathieu Bluchel, it wasn't meant to be in their respective battles. We'll run you through the full results in just a couple of moments' time, but as expected, a brilliant weekend of racing here at Monza. And for a championship that, you know, is relatively new, has absolutely made a name for itself in years past, attracting more and more talent, getting more and more cars onto the grid. And not a single DNF. All 10 cars showed up, which again, we had 7 at the first round. That went up to 8. Went up to 9 for the Nürburgring, up to 10 for Monza. Hopefully we can do a couple better for Spa. Hopefully it should be quite an attractive circuit for these drivers. There you can hear the cheers from the team down at Parc Fermé. And a great job from everyone involved. The drivers, of course, but also the team members, the engineers, the mechanics, for all of their effort. And there he is, Valentino Catalano. Loves it. Chuffed to have brought that home with the fastest lap of the race to go with it as well. Him and his teammate Danny Stufi right the wrongs of yesterday and bagged some crucial championship points to take the lead heading into the final round at the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And what a circuit to do it round as well. I mean, this calendar is remarkable. Mugello, the Nürburgring, Monza and Spa. You talk of some of the best circuits in motorsport, all 4 of them are in the conversation. Dirks, the Belgian, the youngster celebrating with his team, bringing themselves back to the podium, and again we'll be chuffed to have brought that home in what is a weekend that maybe they struggled with ever so slightly on pure pace. But Alps Motorsport still in the hunt, still able to win the championship at the 4th and final round at Spa. We'll run you through the full results in just a couple of moments' time. But just enjoy the atmosphere here down at Parc Fermé. As Emil Hellberg with his second podium of the weekend. P1 yesterday, P2 today. And what will be his 4th podium of the season for the Swede. 4 podiums from 6 races. Not bad going in the slightest. And we'll be getting closer to, well, solidifying a top 3 in the championship, will the Swede. I have to say, like I say, this was my first weekend commentating on this championship, right? And you know, getting to know all of the drivers, meshing them on social media, and just sort of, you know, involving myself in their world in LMP3 machinery. And this championship is remarkable. If it's your first time watching along at home as well, I hope you have enjoyed it. Whether you're a regular viewer or, again, like I say, this is your first time. What a weekend that we had. History made once more at Monza, and teeing ourselves up for a brilliant championship finale at Spa. Valentino Catalano, Danny Sufi bring it home for GMS team after 27 hard laps of racing at the Temple of Speed. Emil Hellberg in P2 from Alps Motorsport, returning to the podium in 3rd. Zino Folker, a fantastic solo effort this weekend, brings it home in 4th ahead of Buchan Motorsport, Clausen and Bluchel in 5th. Very close between the fight for 2nd and the fight for 4th. Maximilian Camalander bring it home for Team Virage in P6 from Oscar Tunyo, Jake Williamson for GMS just in behind in what was 7th. Linus Hellberg in 8th from Larsen and Dominic Bastian for Team Virage alongside Theo Mercouris. They finished P10 and last. But crucially, all 10 cars made it to the checkered flag in what was a very, very good race. It all started from lights out. And look at that launch there, straight down the middle for Emil Herberg. We didn't quite appreciate it enough at the time, but what a launch that was from P6 on the grid, tucked up in the slipstream with Theo Mercouris, got himself ahead of Zeno Folker. The gap opened up on the inside, and with zero hesitation, launched the move down the inside. Nearly got alongside the race leader as well. Theo Mercouris then had to take to the inside of turn number 2. Bit of contact between the pair of them, but just hard elbows out racing. And then the battle would continue down and towards the Roger, where Oscar Cunha would make some moves, make some headway. Theo Mercouris, in pursuit of the race lead, would make the most of his hard charging stint and go down the inside. Meanwhile, the Suzuka cars would swap position. The number 8 down the inside of the number 18. Not a weekend to forget, but definitely a weekend of learning for Muka heading into the finale at Spa. Always love the sound as they leave pit lane. You can't beat it, can you, in MP3s? The race in the pit lane, though, was on. Emil Herberg once again getting out in front of the number 11. And then a spin that we didn't quite catch, actually, for the 43 of Linus Hellberg, and very well avoided there from the number 18 through Ascari. After the penalty for the 48, there we saw it there through turn number 1. Valentino Castellano would not look back, and then it was a battle between Maxim Dirks, who got it all sorts of wrong through turn 7 at the second Lesmo, chasing after P2. There was the contact once more between the two rivals of the 43 of Linus Hellberg and the 18 of Muka. And that then caused the 18 to have to come into pit lane. The rear right bodywork of the car scraping against the tyre. But then, of course, back into the pit lane and back out then again. We'll let the rest of the highlights roll their way through. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your company this weekend. It has been such a great introduction to this championship, the Prototype Cup Europe. Their third round of 4 in the 2026 campaign. What a weekend it was, of course, for GMS team, the number 11, Catalano and Sufi, bringing it home P2 and P1 today. We'll see you out next time for the season finale at Spa.
Toma, vai safada. O bagulho é doido, só
Allora possiamo partire con la direzione del podio della Prototype Cup Europe a partire dal team terzo classificato per automotorsport, il team tedesco Maxim Dirks, Nigel Moore. Dopo la vittoria di ieri, la seconda posizione